My name is Emily Carter. I was 35 when my father died, and I thought the hardest part would be saying goodbye. I was wrong. The hardest part came afterward. It happened at my mother's house, 7 days after the funeral. My brother, Michael, sat at the head of the dining table. Dad's old leather briefcase was beside him. Mom sat across from him. I sat quietly near the window. And at the end of the table was Dad's longtime attorney, Mr. Anderson. Everyone knew why we were there. Dad had left behind a fortune. Several properties. Investment accounts. A successful manufacturing company. And enough savings to make sure his family would never struggle financially. Michael had spent the entire week telling everyone that Dad wanted him to take over everything. And honestly, I believed him. Michael had always been Dad's favorite. When we were children, Dad took him to business meetings. He taught him how to negotiate. He gave him his first car. When Michael started his first company and failed, Dad paid his debts. When Michael needed money, Dad gave it to him. I was different. I worked. I saved. I bought my own small apartment. I never asked Dad for financial help. Not because I didn't love him. Because I wanted him to know I could stand on my own. Still, there was one thing Dad used to say whenever we talked about the future. Money isn't what you leave behind, Emily. It's what you teach people to do with it. I never understood what he meant. Until that afternoon. Mr. Anderson opened the leather briefcase. Richard Carter's final estate plan contains several provisions. Michael leaned forward. Let's get this over with. Mom looked at him. Michael. He shrugged. Sorry. The lawyer began reading. The first properties went to Mom. A few smaller investments went to various family members. Then he reached the business. Control of Carter Manufacturing shall transfer to Michael Carter. Michael smiled. I looked at him. Congratulations. He nodded. Thanks. Then came the investment accounts. Mr. Anderson listed them one by one. Michael received the largest portion. By the time the reading was finished, it appeared that Michael had inherited almost everything. The room was quiet. Michael leaned back. I knew Dad trusted me. Mom smiled through her tears. He always believed you could carry on his work. I didn't say anything. I was happy for him. Or at least I tried to be. Then Mr. Anderson closed the will. Michael stood. That's it? Mr. Anderson didn't answer. Michael frowned. What? The lawyer looked at him. There is one final matter. Michael sat back down. What matter? Mr. Anderson placed both hands on the table. Before I can release the remaining inheritance, I need you to answer one question. Michael laughed. What question? Mr. Anderson looked directly at him. Where is the original? Michael's smile disappeared. The original what? The original document. What document? Mr. Anderson didn't blink. Your father's private inheritance agreement. Silence. Mom looked confused. I've never heard of such a document. Neither had I. Michael looked irritated. There is no private agreement. Mr. Anderson calmly replied. There is. Michael leaned forward. Where is it? The lawyer looked at him. That is exactly what I'm asking you. Michael's face turned pale. I don't have it. Mr. Anderson nodded. Then you don't know where your father hid it? No. Are you certain? Yes. The lawyer slowly opened another folder. Inside was a photograph. He pushed it across the table. I picked it up. It showed Dad standing in his office. Behind him was a large wooden bookshelf. Michael stared at the photograph. What does this prove? Mr. Anderson pointed to the bookshelf. Your father took this photograph 2 days before he died. So? Look carefully. I leaned closer. There was a small black box on the third shelf. Michael's expression changed. I noticed. Michael? He quickly looked away. Mr. Anderson noticed too. You've seen that box before. Michael stood. No. The lawyer remained seated. Yes, you have. Michael's voice became defensive. I said no. Then Mr. Anderson asked the question again. Where is the original? Michael slammed his hand on the table. I don't know. The room fell silent. My heart was pounding. Because suddenly I remembered something. 2 nights before Dad died, Michael had visited him. They argued. I had heard them from the hallway. Dad had shouted. You will not touch that document. At the time, I thought they were arguing about the business. Now I wasn't so sure. After the meeting, Michael left immediately. Mom stayed behind. I approached Mr. Anderson. What is this document? He lowered his voice. Something your father wanted hidden until after his death. Why? Because he believed someone in the family would try to change the inheritance. I froze. Who? He looked toward the door Michael had just walked through. I think you already know. I couldn't believe it. Are you saying Michael stole it? I didn't say that. But you suspect him. I suspect whoever had access to your father's office. I thought about the photograph. The black box. The argument. Then Mr. Anderson gave me a sealed envelope. This was left for you. My name was written across it. Emily Carter. My hands trembled. Why didn't Dad give this to me? He specifically instructed me to deliver it after the inheritance meeting. I opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter. I recognized Dad's handwriting immediately. There were only 6 words on the page. Emily, don't trust the first story. I read it again. Then again. Mr. Anderson watched me. What does that mean? I looked up. I don't know. He nodded. Your father expected that. What? He wanted you to find out yourself. I looked at the letter. Then I noticed something written on the back. A number. 317. I stared at it. What is 317? Mr. Anderson's expression changed. I don't know. But I could tell he was lying. Before I could ask another question, my phone rang. It was Michael. His voice was unusually quiet. Emily. What? Where are you? At Mom's. Don't tell anyone about Dad's letter. My heart stopped. How do you know about the letter? There was silence. Then Michael whispered. Because Dad left one for me too. The call ended. I looked at Mr. Anderson. He had heard everything. Then he slowly stood. Emily. What? He pointed toward the hallway. Your brother just made a very serious mistake. Why? Because your father didn't leave 2 letters. I stared at him. What do you mean? Mr. Anderson's face became pale. He left 3. I stared at Mr. Anderson. 3 letters? He nodded. Your father gave me 3 sealed envelopes before he died. One for Michael? Yes. One for me? Yes. And the third? Mr. Anderson hesitated. That one was not addressed to either of you. Then who was it for? He looked toward the hallway. I was instructed to give it to the person who discovered the original inheritance agreement. I felt a chill. So Dad expected the original to disappear? I believe he expected someone to look for it. I looked again at the number written on the back of my letter. 317. What does that number mean? Mr. Anderson shook his head. I promised your father I wouldn't tell you. I frowned. But you just said he wanted me to discover it. Discovering something is different from being told where it is. I almost smiled. That sounds exactly like Dad. He nodded. Your father loved puzzles. No. He loved testing people. Mr. Anderson smiled faintly. That too. That evening, I went home and read Dad's letter again. Emily, don't trust the first story. The sentence bothered me. What was the first story? That Michael inherited everything? That the missing document changed the inheritance? Or that someone had stolen it? I opened my laptop and searched through every old family file I had. Nothing. Then I remembered Dad's office. The photograph. The black box. And the number 317. I called Mom. Mom, can I ask you something? Of course. Did Dad ever mention room 317? There was a long silence. Then she asked. Why are you asking? My heart started beating faster. You know what it means. I don't know anything. Mom. She sighed. Your father had a storage unit. Where? I don't remember. You do. Another silence. Then she whispered. Carter Plaza. I immediately wrote it down. What number? She hesitated. 317. My heart stopped. Mom, why didn't you tell me? Because your father told me never to mention it. Why? He said it wasn't safe. Not safe? Before she could answer, I heard something on her end. A door closing. Then Mom whispered. Emily, I have to go. The call ended. I stared at my phone. Something was very wrong. The next morning, I drove to Carter Plaza. It was an old commercial building Dad had purchased years ago. Most of the offices were empty. I found the elevator and pressed the button for the third floor. The hallway was dark. At the end was a metal door. 317. I tried the handle. Locked. I called Mr. Anderson. I found it. Found what? Room 317. There was silence. Then he said. Don't go inside. Why? Because your father didn't give you permission. I looked at the locked door. Then why did he write the number? I don't know. I hung up. I called the building manager. 10 minutes later, he arrived with a key. You're Richard Carter's daughter? Yes. He looked uncomfortable. Your father told us no one was allowed in this room without his written authorization. I showed him my identification. He hesitated. Then unlocked the door. Inside was almost nothing. One desk. 2 filing cabinets. A wooden shelf. And a small safe. I walked toward the desk. There was dust everywhere. But the safe was clean. Someone had touched it recently. I looked at the floor. There were fresh shoe marks. My heart started racing. Someone had been here. Recently. I turned toward the door. Is anyone else supposed to have access? The manager shook his head. Only your father. After his death? No one. I walked back toward the safe. There was a keypad. 4 digits. I remembered the number. I entered it. Nothing. Then I tried Dad's birthday. The safe clicked. I stepped back. The door opened. Inside was a black box. Exactly like the one in Dad's photograph. My hands trembled. I opened it. There was a USB drive. A key. And another envelope. This one wasn't addressed to me. It simply said, for the person who finds this. I opened it. Inside was a short note. If you're reading this, the original agreement is no longer where I left it. My heart sank. I read the next line. But the person who moved it knows exactly where it is. Then I saw the final sentence. Look at the third letter. I froze. The third letter. The one Mr. Anderson had mentioned. The letter Dad hadn't given to either of us. I immediately called the lawyer. Mr. Anderson, I found Dad's storage room. His voice became tense. What did you find? A letter. What does it say? I read it to him. There was a long silence. Then he asked. Did you find the USB? Yes. Don't open it. Why? Because your father specifically instructed me to give you that warning. I stared at the USB. What's on it? I don't know. You don't? No. Then why are you afraid of it? His voice dropped. Because your father told me that if the drive was ever found, someone had already broken the rules. I returned home. I placed the USB on my desk. I stared at it for nearly an hour. Finally, I connected it to my laptop. One folder appeared. Final test. Inside was a single video. Dad appeared on the screen. He looked tired. Much older than I remembered. But his eyes were clear. Emily, he said. I covered my mouth. I hadn't heard his voice since the day before he died that he continued. If you're watching this, then the inheritance meeting has already happened. I leaned closer. Your brother probably believes he inherited everything. My eyes filled with tears. Dad smiled sadly. But he hasn't. I froze. There is one thing Michael doesn't know. Dad leaned closer to the camera. The original inheritance agreement contains a condition that changes everything. I waited. Then Dad said. The person who controls the company is not the person who inherits it. The video suddenly stopped. I stared at the screen. What? The file ended. But there was another file. I opened it. It contained a scanned document. At the top. Original beneficiary agreement. I scrolled down. And then I saw my name. Emily Carter, 51% controlling interest. I couldn't breathe. Dad had never intended Michael to own everything. But then I noticed something else. A handwritten note at the bottom. Only if Michael fails the final test. I stared at those words. Then my phone rang. It was Michael. I answered. Hello? His voice was shaking. Emily. What happened? I found the third letter. My heart stopped. Where? He whispered. In Dad's office. Then he said something that made my blood run cold. It's addressed to you. I looked at the document on my screen. What's inside? Michael didn't answer. Instead, he whispered. Dad says you're not supposed to inherit the company. I froze. What? There's another name. Whose? Michael's voice trembled. I don't know. Then the call disconnected. I stared at the screen. 1 minute ago, I thought Dad had secretly left me control of the company. Now I was discovering that someone else might have been named in the final agreement. And if Michael was telling the truth, then Dad's secret wasn't about choosing between his two children. It was about someone neither of us knew existed. I couldn't move. Michael's words kept repeating in my head. Dad says you're not supposed to inherit the company. There's another name. Another name. Who? I immediately called him back. No answer. Again. Nothing. I called Mr. Anderson. He answered after the first ring. Emily? Michael found the third letter. There was silence. What did he tell you? He said Dad named someone else. The lawyer didn't respond. Mr. Anderson? Finally, he said. You need to come to my office. 20 minutes later, I was sitting across from him. He looked exhausted. You knew, I said. I knew there was a third beneficiary. Who? I don't know. Your dad's lawyer. I know what your father told me. I don't know everything your father discovered. I stared at him. Then tell me what you do know. He opened a locked drawer and removed a sealed envelope. This is the third letter. I recognized Dad's handwriting. Why didn't you give it to me? Because your father gave me specific instructions. What instructions? To deliver it only after both you and Michael discovered the first two documents. I stared at the envelope. Michael found it? Yes. Then why is it here? Mr. Anderson looked at me. Because he brought it back. My heart skipped. Why? He said he was afraid to open it. That didn't sound like Michael. My brother had never been afraid of anything. I opened the envelope. Inside was one page. I read the first sentence. To my children, if you are reading this together, then I have succeeded. I looked at Mr. Anderson. What does that mean? Keep reading. The next paragraph explained everything. Dad wrote that he had spent years watching us compete for his approval. Michael wanted his money. I wanted his trust. Dad had realized that if he simply divided the estate, the family would eventually destroy itself fighting over it. So he created the final test. The fortune would remain protected until we discovered the truth together. Then I reached the final paragraph. My hands began shaking. The person I have named as final beneficiary is not a stranger. I stopped. Mr. Anderson watched me. Keep reading. I did. It is the person who sacrificed the most for this family without ever asking for anything in return. My eyes filled with tears. I thought it was me. Then I read the next line. And my heart stopped. Her name is. The page ended. I looked at Mr. Anderson. The rest is missing. He nodded. That is why we need to find the original. That night, Michael finally came to my apartment. He looked completely different. No expensive clothes. No confident smile. Just exhaustion. He sat down. I'm sorry. For what? For lying to you. I stared at him. What did you find? He pulled a folded document from his jacket. This. I opened it. It was a copy of Dad's private notes. One sentence had been highlighted. If Michael chooses greed, Emily must know the truth. I looked at him. You knew about the money transfers. He nodded. I knew Dad was investigating me. Did you move the original agreement? He looked down. Yes. My heart sank. Why? I was scared. Where is it? I hid it. Where? He looked at me. Dad's old factory. We drove there together. The factory had been closed since Dad's death. Inside, everything was covered with dust. Michael walked toward the old maintenance room. He opened a metal cabinet. Nothing. It's gone. What? The document was here. I looked around. Then I noticed a small envelope taped underneath the cabinet. I pulled it free. Dad's handwriting. If the original is missing, look where the first business began. Michael looked at me. The first office. We drove there immediately. It was a tiny building Dad had rented 30 years earlier. Inside was an old desk. Behind it was a wooden wall panel. Michael pulled it loose. And there it was. A black folder. The original agreement. My hands trembled as I opened it. The first pages were exactly as expected. Then we reached the final page. There was Dad's signature. Mr. Anderson's signature. And beneath them, a beneficiary name. I stared. Michael whispered. Who is it? I couldn't answer. Because the name wasn't mine. It wasn't Michael's. It wasn't Mom's. It was Sarah Carter. Michael looked confused. Who is Sarah? I turned the page. There was a photograph attached. A young woman. Standing beside Dad. And suddenly, I recognized her. My hands went cold. Michael. What? That's our father's sister. He stared at the photograph. But Aunt Sarah died before we were born. I shook my head. No. I remembered something Mom had once told me. A family argument. A sister who disappeared. A woman Dad had never spoken about. A woman everyone believed had died years ago. But the document said something different. Sarah Carter, 40% beneficiary. Then beneath her name. Emily Carter, 35%. Michael Carter, 25%. Michael stared at the numbers. So neither of us inherited everything. No. And Aunt Sarah gets 40%? I nodded. But she's dead. We both went silent. Then I noticed another line. In the event of Sarah Carter's death, her share shall pass to her legal descendant. Michael looked at me. Her descendant? I nodded slowly. Suddenly, someone behind us spoke. Yes. We turned. Mom was standing in the doorway. She was crying. I stared at her. Mom? She walked toward us. I didn't want you to find out this way. Michael looked furious. You knew? Mom nodded. For 35 years. Who is Sarah's descendant? Mom looked at me. Then at Michael. And finally she whispered. You have a sister. The room went completely silent. I couldn't breathe. Michael stepped backward. No. Mom nodded. Your father had a daughter before he met me. I stared at her. Where is she? Mom's tears fell. She has been living under another name for years. Why? Because your father believed she would be safer if no one knew who she was. Michael shook his head. Where is she now? Mom looked toward. Because he thought he was protecting all of us. I couldn't stop staring at her. She looked familiar. Not exactly like Dad. But there was something in her eyes. Something that made me believe her. I asked. Did you know about the inheritance? Yes. Then why didn't you come forward? Rachel took a breath. Because I didn't want Dad's money. Michael looked confused. Then why did he leave you 40%? He wanted me to have the choice. What choice? Rachel looked at the document. To accept it. She paused. Or give it away. I looked at her. Give it away to whom? Rachel smiled. That depends on what you two choose to do. The following morning, we returned to Mr. Anderson's office. He examined the original agreement carefully. Then he smiled. Your father succeeded. Michael frowned. At what? His final test. Mr. Anderson explained that Dad's estate had been deliberately divided. Michael would receive 25%. I would receive 35%. Rachel would receive 40%. But there was one final condition. Rachel had complete authority over her share. She could keep it. Donate it. Or redistribute it between the family. But she could only make that decision after meeting us. Dad wanted to know whether his children would fight for money. Or finally act like a family. Michael looked at Rachel. What are you going to do? She looked at me. Then at him. I haven't decided. Michael nodded. I understand. For once, he wasn't demanding anything. He wasn't arguing. He wasn't trying to win. He simply accepted her decision. I smiled. Maybe that was exactly what Dad had been waiting for. 3 months later, Rachel made her decision. She kept enough money to build a life for herself. Then she gave part of her inheritance to a foundation Dad had created before his death. The rest was divided between the three of us. Not equally. Fairly. And the company? It remained under family control. I became the CEO. Michael became the operations director. Rachel joined the board. But the most important thing wasn't the money. It was what happened afterward. We started having dinner together. We learned about each other's lives. We discovered old photographs. We heard stories about Dad we'd never known. And slowly, Rachel stopped feeling like a stranger. She became my sister. One evening, the three of us stood outside Dad's first factory. Michael looked at the old building. "Do you think Dad knew we'd end up like this?" I smiled. "He probably planned it." Rachel laughed. "That sounds like him." We stood quietly. Then Michael said, "I finally understand the question." I looked at him. "What question?" "The lawyer's question. Where is the original?" He smiled. Dad wasn't asking where the document was. Rachel looked at him. Then what was he asking? Michael looked at both of us. He was asking whether we'd find the truth before we destroyed each other. I smiled. And suddenly everything made sense. The missing will. The hidden room. The secret beneficiary. The third letter. The mysterious number. Dad hadn't been trying to hide his fortune. He had been hiding the truth long enough for us to reveal who we really were. And in the end, the fortune wasn't the greatest inheritance Dad left us. It was the family he gave us back. Before we left, I looked at Dad's old factory one last time. For years, I had believed my father chose Michael over me. Then I believed he had secretly chosen me. But the truth was much more complicated. He hadn't chosen one child. He had given all of us a chance. A chance to prove that money didn't have to divide us. A chance to discover a sister we never knew existed. And a chance to understand that an inheritance isn't measured by the number written on a check. It's measured by what you do with what someone trusted you to protect. Michael put his hand on my shoulder. "Ready?" I smiled. "Yeah." Rachel joined us. The three of us walked away together. And for the first time since Dad died, I didn't feel like I'd lost a family.